Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm really excited to be moderating tonight. My name is Stasi Snelling. I am the youth partner with Rise Above Colorado, one of the youth partners. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I want to welcome all of you to Rise Above Colorado's I Am Greta Youth Leadership Panel discussion. For anyone who joined in the last minute or so, for our guests, I would love if you could share one word in the chat that describes your reaction to the film I Am Greta, if you were able to watch it this weekend. And so our intention with this discussion tonight is to hear more about how teens are getting involved, both in their community and across Colorado, to help fill their world with good. We're excited to listen to our panelists, learn from each of them, and then we'll open up the conversation so that you participants can also ask questions as well, and get a little bit of interaction. The film I Am Greta gave us a lot to reflect on, and hopefully each of you had the chance to join our screening last Saturday. And if not, don't worry, we'll be hearing from each of the panelists, their reaction to the film after some introductions. And before we really get going, I just wanted to say two things. First of all, although we weren't able to have a broad diversity of representatives here tonight, I just wanted to take a moment for all of us to acknowledge all of the communities, and especially the Indigenous-led groups and young people in our communities who continue to push us towards the better world that they envision for all of us. Secondly, I wanted to just briefly share what resonated for me from the film as someone who is also extremely passionate about change and is actually going to school for conservation-related topics. For me, this film spoke a lot to how Greta is simply just a teen who wants to see change. While she is inspiring to many, and she herself is humble, honest, and authentic, she's no different than the rest of us. I love how she spoke about this in the film when she said, "I should not take the focus because that's what's so good about this movement is that everyone is equally contributing." She wants people to listen to the diverse voices that are currently and have been for generations speaking about climate change and the need for that change. Young people come from so many different backgrounds and identities: race, class, nationality, sexual orientation, and abilities. And yet all of these different people come together and try to influence change. Something that I particularly took away from Greta's messages was that she wanted people to focus on the issue, and for adults, especially those in power, to actually make the change necessary, or the necessary change needed to limit the extreme impacts of climate change. She wanted action from all the politicians and the fancy people, not to be told that they're so proud of what she's doing, only to go back to what they were doing and leave her with empty promises, and all of us with empty promises. From my experience, so infuriating when us youth are politely told that we're doing such amazing things and then nothing changes. We're speaking out because we want action, not words. We need adults to partner with us in a way that actually makes change happen. Take our input and make that happen. Side, Greta also had some amazing supports, particularly who was there to help her every step of the way with the emotional and logistical help. We'll be asking our panelists later what they think adults can do to support these efforts. And what resonated for me from the film was these two things: support and action. Now, we'll really begin begin the discussion by introducing our panelists. We'll follow up by asking several questions to each of them. But then we definitely want to emphasize that we want to hear from each of you, from our participants, and we encourage you to use the chat to submit your questions. And so now I will introduce our panelists. We have Indigo. Indigo, would you like to introduce yourself with your pronouns and just a short introduction of what you've been up to?
Sure. So my name is Indigo Parlin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Just a few things I'm involved in. I'm a freshman right now at Columbia University online. I've worked with Rise Above Colorado in the past, and I was also a really big part of Key Club in high school. And right now I am interning for Thirst Project, which is a nonprofit based in LA. So that's what I've been up to recently.
Thank you, Indigo. I lost the panelist. Allie, would you like to go?
Yeah, my name is Allie Sabah. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Right now, I'm a senior at Denver School of the Arts, but in terms of this panel, I'm representing the Colorado Youth Advisory Council. Just, I guess, some things that I've been up to. I want to major in political science in college. I'm also a member of an organization called Children's International Summer Village, and that's like an international cultural understanding, cooperation, community building organization. I plan a lot of like community service activities and stuff, and I'm super passionate about social justice.
Awesome, thank you so much. Andrew?
Hi everyone, my name's Andrew Peterson. I go by he, him, his pronouns, and I currently am on a gap year, but I have worked in the past with the Boys and Girls Club of Northwest Colorado, and then I was on the executive board of Teen Council of Steamboat Springs. There I did a huge community project sort of campaigning my city council to transition our town from single-use plastic bags to paper bags in all our grocery stores. And last year, my first year in college, I was an eco representative for my dorm building.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Anushka?
Hi, my name's Anushka Jani. I'm a junior at Legacy High School in Broomfield. In terms of this panel, I'm representing Rise Above Colorado and the Colorado Youth Congress, where the main focus is around mental health and just boosting those resources, especially for the youth. I'm also in Broomfield Youth for Youth, and some of the members are on here today, where we focus on preventing youth substance abuse, increasing mental health awareness, and focusing on building positive relationships.
Thank you so much, Anushka. And Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a junior at Nederland High School. I'm here representing Teens Inc. and specifically Teamworks in the Youth Leadership Academy. Teamworks is an educational work experience that provides different perspectives on the environment and conservation and how it relates to the community. And it's also an opportunity for youth to develop useful skills focused on cultivating core tenets like leadership and environmental stewardship. And then the YLA is part of the Communities That Care Coalition, working to address risk factors within the community, develop positive coping strategies for youth, and prevent substance abuse.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. So our first question will go around and have each of you answer just what resonated with you from watching the I Am Greta film, what resonated with you, inspired you, surprised you, etc. And we'll start with Indigo.
I think I had two moments in the film that really struck me, and I'll just share those. The first one was when we see all of these, death threats that Greta is receiving, all of these criticisms, and she says what worries her more than the threats is what would happen if she didn't do what she was doing, if she didn't work for the change she was working for. So that was really impactful to me. And another part that I thought was really interesting was at the beginning of the film, on her first day of striking, when someone stops and tells her that she should go to school so that she can make change later on after she gets education. And just something that I personally believe is that as youth, we never need a higher education or more money or, more social connections or really anything to make change. It starts with small movements like what Greta was doing.
Thank you so much. Andrew?
I was really inspired by Greta, seeing how she really built this grassroots movement kind of on her own and how it spread throughout the world, really. As youth, we're often told that, we don't know what we're talking about, that leave it to the adults or just wait and, I don't know, figure out different solutions later. But I was just really inspired by what she did, how she educated so many youth throughout her activism.
Thank you, Andrew. Allie?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing that I took from the film was just I think it really displayed how normal Greta is, because it's easy to just see her as like this figure. I mean, she won the 2019 Times Person of the Year. She's become like this, she's spearheaded this movement and become this icon for people, but she's also just a kid. So it's mainly inspiring just to see that a person like that, that you can like, it's inspiring to see that you can do anything, because she was just 15 when she started this movement.
Yes, thank you, Allie. Anushka?
Yeah, so when I watched the film, I was left with goosebumps, which is rare for me. I don't usually get goosebumps after I watch something, but it was just so inspiring to see Greta, who's the exact same age as me, we're both 17, that she created such a lasting impact on the world by doing such a simple thing as just sitting outside of the Swedish parliament with her protest sign, and that snowballed into activism all over the world. And it's just so inspiring to see that someone as young as her can make such a big impact that lasts for a long time.
Yes, thank you, Anushka. And Natalie?
I think the points made about youth in general were just super impactful. And like youth are so often ignored and put in the spotlight only to like showcase adults. So even with like that being a struggle, Greta still continued to do the work that she found important and spoke her truth, because it is a change that needs to happen. And she was passionate about that. And to just see like a youth who's passionate about something and is really making a change is so inspiring.
Thank you all for sharing. Those were some really great points. I hope everyone was able to watch the film, but if you weren't, I hope those insights gave you some idea, and hopefully you can watch it when it comes out on Hulu. Alrighty, so now we're going to get into some of our other questions, and we'll do this same roundtable style, and if anybody wants to respond to other people, or you're like, I really don't want to sit here and like wait for my turn, I want to just talk, let me know. I am new to moderating, but otherwise we'll continue going. So our next question is, at the heart of I Am Greta, we see a young person's passion coming to life. And during your intros, we got to hear a little bit about what each of you are pursuing. And so we'd really love to hear now more from each of you about how you're pursuing your passion to make a difference. And again, we will start with Indigo.
So I kind of mentioned earlier, I did a lot of work with Rise Above Colorado in high school, but I think someone else will be talking about that here. So I'm going to talk about what I'm doing right now, which is interning at Thirst Project. So like I mentioned, Thirst Project is a nonprofit that's based in LA, and what we're doing is trying to combat the global water crisis. And how we're doing that is by empowering the youth. We are like solely focused on empowering students to end the global water crisis. And for anyone that isn't really sure like what that looks like, the global water crisis, 600 million people in our world still lack access to clean water, which is 1 out of every 13 of us. And this is a really big problem and something I really care about, because it's not just that these people don't have clean water to, wash with and to drink, but they're getting diseases from it. They're spending 6 to 8 hours a day collecting water. The act of collecting water, 44 pounds of water is the average weight that's carried, is causing health problems as well. So, and the time that it's taking away from financial opportunities, from educational opportunities. So really, like, water is the basis of life. So that's the problem that I'm really trying to help solve right now. That's what I'm passionate about. So in my internship, what I'm doing is public speaking to students and raising awareness about this problem, and then helping the students by mentoring them in their leadership and helping them fundraise for the cause. So that's just what I've been up to.
That's awesome, Indigo. Thank you so much for sharing. Definitely a big issue, and it's great to hear what you're doing. Andrew, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so currently right now I am on a gap year from school, but I'm still involved with the program I was involved in at school. I was an eco representative. So my first year I was representing my dorm building, sort of just educating everyone in my building, steps they can take to be more sustainable, use less single-use plastics. But I've really been working with their office to educate kind of the broader community of steps that they can take. So not just my dorm building, but the larger community at whole.
That's awesome. I love hearing what you're doing. That's another important issue. Thank you. Allie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so like I said in my introduction, something I'm super passionate about is political science, and that's what I want to do in my future. So it's kind of hard to like take those steps as a 17 or 18-year-old. But during my junior year, I took a semester abroad to go travel because I wanted to kind of broaden my perspectives. I felt like my community in Denver and my school that I've been at for 7 years was just kind of I felt like it was useless, me spending time there, because I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to make change. So I went to Sydney, Australia in September, and was a part of the global climate strike, which was like what Greta is doing. It was sponsored by Fridays for Future and all that. And that was incredibly inspiring. And I found myself in Madrid in December at COP25, and I got to go to the conference, the UN conference for climate change. Obviously not the political zone where all the global leaders were speaking, but I got to interview and talk to a bunch of people about change that we can make just as a global community and what gives them hope. And that was just kind of like a basis for starting to get ideas about how I can make change in the world, and how to talk to people and create this community together.
That's really awesome. Those sound like some really fantastic experiences. I'm glad you got to do that. And good luck continuing to pursue that as well, and to all of you. Anushka.
Yeah, so most of my passion and advocacy surrounds mental health. So at the beginning of high school, right before I entered high school, like my first semester, I noticed that there was this lack of resources for youth, and not many people were talking about mental health, and there was still a huge stigma around it in my community in Broomfield and in Colorado too. And I just felt like I needed to do something. So I joined Broomfield Youth for Youth, and I was able to talk to city officials and get my opinions out in the open. And I eventually found the Colorado Youth Congress, which is a statewide group for youth where we focus on mental health and racial justice. I was in the mental health campaign last year where we tried to implement more mental health education in DPS schools. That was before, of course, COVID hit and we couldn't finish that. But for the next 2 years, that's our plan, is just to get more education out there, find ways to get those resources out to teens across Colorado who might not have access to mental health resources, and just reduce the stigma. And then from the Colorado Youth Congress, I was also able to find Rise Above Colorado, where there's that similar passion for just reducing the stigma and spreading more awareness about mental health, especially in youth, since it's such a big crisis in Colorado.
Thank you, Anushka. That's really awesome. And again, a very important issue close to my heart as well. And Natalie.
So most of my work has been centered around my community in Netherlands. And over the summer, I worked for Teamworks, which takes like a diverse group of individuals from both rural and urban places and just brings them together. And we do a lot of field work. The reason I did that is because I wanted to give back to the earth and just the environment around me that's given so much to me. And then also I have a real passion for youth advocacy, and especially speaking up for youth who don't have a voice themselves, because so often it can be so hard to speak up, especially in like a room full of adults. And Wiley has given me an outlet to do so.
That's super awesome. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing. For most of you probably don't know, I also grew up in Netherlands and have been involved in the programs that Natalie's been involved in. So it was really cool to connect with her and be able to talk about that stuff. Thank you all so much for sharing what you're passionate about and what you're doing. And it's really cool to hear about all the ways that you're getting the word out about your issue. Our next question is related to your pursuits. What challenges or frustrations have you experienced along the way with logistics or people? And we'll start with Indigo again.
I think that one of the biggest problems I have in general is that I find myself not having a lot of time for everything, just because, like, as you know, student leaders and student activists, we're doing school full time. We might be working part-time jobs or have family responsibilities, and then on top of that, we're trying to organize campaigns and fundraisers. So that's definitely a challenging aspect. And then I think another thing is like getting pushback from people around you and even from yourself, that what you're doing isn't going to have an impact, or if it will have an impact, it's going to be such a small impact that all the effort you're putting in isn't worth it. And I think that throughout high school, something I really learned was that even if you put in a ton of effort and you get almost no outcome, that's okay, because you're still trying to make change, and that, like, what you do now is gonna blossom in the future, and you're just laying the groundwork. Even if it seems like things aren't changing yet, they will.
Thank you, Indigo. I'm going to shift a little bit and just add a second question to each of you. On the flip side of that, what has helped you the most in your pursuits?
I kind of answered that already,
Yeah.
just kind of like with like having that shift in mindset. But I think another thing is having a really strong support system. And for me, that's my mom and definitely my teachers, specifically my teachers in high school that I was really close to, and really supported me in um, all of my crazy ideas. And then, yeah, like just having a understanding within myself that, you know, my purpose here is to make change and to help other people. And so when you have that purpose driving you, then that's gonna just help you so much.
Thank you, Indigo. Those are some really great points. Andrew, would you like to share both of those together, or your frustrations and your...
Yeah, so I'll start off with by saying that what helped me most was really finding someone that can help guide and mentor me. So for me, that was someone I worked with my project called Bag Free in the Boat. I worked closely with the Yampa Valley Sustainability Foundation, and there I really found great mentorship, and they just really were always there for me to answer any questions, encouragement. They walked me through the whole process of my project that I worked on for about 2-3 years. So really finding someone that can just always be there, be your cheerleader, always be encouraging to you. But one of the biggest frustrations I had when I was working on my project is it took a long time because our whole goal was to implement a new city ordinance. So that takes a really long time. We had to go through city council, they had to vote multiple times, go through multiple proposals. But at our first meeting with city council, a city councilwoman was telling us that she didn't want to ban plastic bags in our community because she was afraid that she would have nothing to scoop her cat litter, like dispose of her cat litter with. And that was just so frustrating to me because we explained to her all the different alternatives, and it just felt like she was being really ignorant and not like willing for change. So the biggest frustration is people that are just not willing to change.
Thank you, Andrew. That's definitely sounds frustrating, and I'm also glad that you had some great supports around you as well. Allie, would you like to share some challenges or frustrations, and also what helped you?
Yeah, I think kind of relating to what Andrew said, probably one of the biggest frustrations that I've found just throughout like it generally is just how like disheartening it makes you feel when you discover how hard it is to make change. And I think this is also something that Greta voices throughout her entire film, is just like regarding policies and stuff, it's hard to make change in a government, even if it's something as small as using plastic bags instead, or paper bags instead of plastic bags. So I mean, just as an example, when I was in Sydney at the climate strike, I would ask people, what gives you hope? It was so inspiring just to be with like thousands of people who were so passionate about the same thing, and to see this huge group of people that was so passionate about one issue. And then to see like, what is this doing? It's so difficult to make people listen, even though there's thousands of people here. So I guess relating to that, something that like keeps me going is just knowing and like keeping that passion with me, is that whatever project I'm working on, if I'm passionate about it and I have this drive to make a difference and make change in whatever I'm doing, that will keep me forward and keep me going.
Awesome, Allie. Thank you for all of that. Anushka, some challenges or frustrations and things that have helped you.
Yeah, so just piggybacking off of what Ali said, like making change is really hard, especially when it's systemic change. You know, it's so rooted into the systems, especially if you're thinking about mental health, or in Greta's case, the environment. It's so hard to make change, especially if you're not of voting age, which a lot of youth activists aren't. So it makes it even harder to make that change. And I've just found that to be really difficult in my journey for fighting for change. But something that really helps me is I believe that strength does come in numbers, especially considering our generation who is really self-aware and aware of all of the issues going on in the world. Just finding like-minded people who are genuinely passionate about the same issues you are passionate about, I feel like that makes a huge difference and keeps me motivated to keep fighting for that change.
Thank you, Anushka. Those were some really great points. And Natalie, some struggles and frustrations, and also things that have helped you.
I think one of the most difficult challenges I've faced during my time at YLA was when I spoke up at the state capitol in favor of a ban on flavored nicotine products. And that was just super hard because it was in an environment that was overwhelmingly adult, which is like so hard to speak up for, especially when you know you're going to be opposed on something. And the way I was able to get through that was just by like delivering my message and focusing on that, because I think when people are willing to just like focus on the change or focus on the goal they want to get to, it's a lot easier to overcome the opposition. And then the thing that's probably been most helpful for me is just having supportive adults who are willing to listen to what I have to say, and like not just like listen, but get to know me personally and professionally, and then open communication so that when there is an issue, like we can address it and like start to make the change with that.
Thank you, Natalie. I heard about that. And you all did great. Okay, so back to Indigo. Our next question is, what does inspiration look and feel like to you, and where do you go to find it?
I feel like this one is a little bit hard for me because I get inspiration from a lot of different places. I'd say two big ones are people. I think I get a lot of inspiration from seeing other people doing amazing things. And that just motivates me. It makes me think that I can do that too. I can also make change. And I think another thing is becoming aware about problems really inspires me to take action, because I've always been the kind of person that like sees a problem and immediately wants to start solving it. And kind of like, what does that inspiration feel like? It feels like absolute hectic, I plan campaigns until 1 a.m. type of thing. But I mean, I think it's a good inspiration, and it's like a good like motivational burst when I find a problem that I'm super passionate about.
Thank you, Indigo. That was great to hear. Andrew, can you share what inspiration looks and feels like to you, and where you go to find it?
I find a lot of inspiration when people show interest in what you're doing. So that gives you the opportunity to answer questions and sort of start a discussion and show more people the steps you're taking, what's available, how you can impact your community, how you can impact other people's lives, and start to have that discussion. And like Indigo said, I really am also inspired by other people, hearing what other people are working on as well.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great to hear. Allie, will you share what inspiration looks and feels like to you, and where you go to find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I agree, it's a very hard question, but I think that people are my biggest inspiration, and finding people like Greta who devote their entire lives to one project and are so inspired to make change is probably what motivates me the most. Is that like, I'm a person who likes to make people uncomfortable, likes to make a splash, and knowing that I can make a difference in someone's life is probably the most inspiring thing to me. Just knowing in my heart and other people knowing that they can make change is very powerful.
Thank you, Allie. That was great to hear. Anushka, will you share what inspiration looks and feels like to you, and where you go to find it?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. My biggest, where I find the most inspiration is just talking to people, and seeing what they are doing in their own communities or across the world, and just truly finding out what they're passionate about. That truly inspires me to keep fighting for what I'm passionate about. And what that looks like to me is like I have this goal in my mind, and I'm not going to stop until I accomplish it. And hopefully, I can continue to do that throughout the rest of my life.
Thank you, Anushka. That was awesome. And Natalie, what does inspiration feel and look like to you? And where do you go to find it?
I would also completely agree. I think finding other people who are passionate about something and who know like their problem really well and know the steps they want to take to make the change, like Greta does, it's just so inspiring. And then also just personally working with a group of people who everyone is excited to contribute and everyone really has something to contribute is just so inspiring and like so exciting. It's the best way, I think, to get work done.
Thank you all. Those were some really great points that you had, and I definitely agree that seeing other people inspired is very inspirational. So thank you all for being here, because I'm sure there's some other people getting inspired by you tonight. Alrighty, back to Indigo. Our next question is, what can adults in your community do more or less of to help you achieve your goals?
So when I was preparing for this question, I really reflected on my leadership journey, and I realized that every step of the way since I really started getting involved in activism, I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, I've had really amazing adults in my life supporting me. And I kind of reflected on what made them so amazing. And I think it boils down to two things, which is empowerment and connecting you to resources. So I think empowerment is a lot of like supporting students and helping them fully flesh out their ideas and their understandings, and then resources is helping them make it happen, because as students we don't always have access to money or to social media platforms or all these different resources. So I've noticed that without the support of adults empowering me and connecting me to resources, I would have never been able to do half of the things that I accomplished. So if we definitely focus on those two things.
Thank you. Those are some great, great advice. Andrew, will you speak to what adults in your community can do more or less of to help you achieve your goals?
I couldn't agree more with what Indigo just said, that it's really about empowerment and providing the resources. What really helped me in my project that I worked on throughout high school was the empowerment, which I sort of spoke on earlier, but also that the resources. I got into my plastic bag ban project, really not knowing at all the steps to take, but it was the adults that helped me along the way to connect me to other people, to other organizations that had the answers, that had the resources, that were able to spread my word and message. And that's really what got my project going, what inspired me. So I think adults really sharing children's stories, helping elevate their voices has been really inspiring.
Thank you, Andrew. Those are some great points. Allie, will you share what adults in your community can do to help?
Yeah, thankfully, I've also had a lot of really great adults that have helped me and given me the resources and stuff to do what I want to do, and seen me as like a capable human being and not just a child. But that's kind of something that like Greta displayed a lot in her movie, was that like she wants adults to stop looking at young people as youth that are incapable of making change and incapable of knowing what is the best. So I guess that's just a general thing, is just kind of like an equity thing, is to have adults stop looking at youth as kids, because I know that we're capable and we have as much like passion and almost resources as they do, and it shouldn't be about age in a scenario when we're all trying to shoot for the better good.
Thank you, Allie. That was awesome. And Anushka, what can adults in your community do to help?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what everyone has said so far. I just think I've been really lucky to have worked with so many adults who are so supportive. I think what allows us to be successful is just letting the youth lead the change while the adults stay more in the background and provide the support, like was said earlier, the resources connecting us to different people. Like, for example, the Colorado Youth Congress has allowed me to speak with city officials, state officials, just connecting us to those really amazing resources and letting us lead that change.
Thank you, Anushka. And Natalie, what can adults in your community do to help?
I completely agree. I've had a lot of adults who've helped me, and I think that I've also talked to a lot of adults about this same question. And I think the first and most essential step to boosting youth voices is to let them use their genuine voice and let them say what they really want to say, because clearly, like, it's important, or else they wouldn't be wanting to say it. And I think that can be done by providing a platform for youth so they can engage in their passion.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, everyone. Those were some really great points for adults to help support youth in their passions. I just wanted to take a moment, since we have about 15 minutes left, to say to the participants, if any questions have come up for you so far, please feel free to share that in the chat. And if you have any questions that you've been waiting to ask, please also put those in there, and we'll make sure that we have time to answer those. So while you all are thinking about that, we'll go back to Indigo and ask, looking to the future, what motivates or excites you and what concerns you?
For this question, I think I'm going to start with what concerns me. And I think, this is probably concerning to everyone, but just like everything that's going on in 2020, I feel like the youth are taking a big hit right now in like our motivation and our hopefulness for the future. And I think, if it's not taking a hit to your mental health, then you are very special. So I think a lot of youth are really struggling right now with everything going on. But something that does motivate me is that despite all of us not really being our best selves in the current situation, we're still taking action. And I think one example that really illustrates this for me was just when we were all in quarantine and the Black Lives Matter movement really started blossoming. I remember one of the organizations that I was a part of was refusing to make a statement supporting Black Lives Matter. And I just remember being up super late at night, just on Zoom calls all night, writing letters and doing research to show that, the Black Lives Matter movement is about social injustices. It's not about the politics behind it. And as youth, being in a youth organization, we wanted to show that we support this movement. I think that was just so empowering for me, because we were all in quarantine, not sure what was going to go on in the future. And yet we were just up in the middle of the night on Zoom calls, trying to write letters to these organizations. So I think students are still making change. And if anything, all of the problems that are going on right now are even more motivating for us to be making change and to be using our voices.
Thank you, Indigo. That gave me goosebumps. I saw that we do have a question. We'll just finish going around with this one and then we'll start answering questions. So again, keep adding those to the chat as they come up. Andrew, do you want to speak to what motivates or excites you and what concerns you?
I'd say it's kind of concerning this year. I mean, look at what's just happening within these past 2 weeks. We had a new Supreme Court justice. We have the election coming up. And with that, it's kind of hard to feel like your single vote or your voice is really being heard, that there's these decisions being made without your consideration, that there's so much money and influence that kind of lessens your voice. But I think what inspires me has really been the social media work that our generation has done. And it really goes to show that we're like adaptive, you know, there's not just one solution.
Thank you, Andrew. Allie, will you speak to what motivates or excites you and what concerns you?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Andrew said. Just the youth and the people in my life that I know and just our generation as a whole, I think we're all very fired up. We're all very passionate about what our future will look like. And I think that hopefully we will take those steps as young people to make the change that we want to see. I think we all share pretty similar concerns just about what our future will look like in terms of I Am Greta, what the environment will look like when we are old, when we are raising our own children. Yeah.
Thank you, Allie. Anushka, will you share?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just everything going on in the world right now, all of the issues that our generation is facing, I feel like it makes us very angry, but I feel like we can use that anger to fuel our hunger for change right now and in our future, which I think would be really cool. And just what else excites me is just how passionate everyone I know around me is. All the youth are so passionate about the issues in our world. And going to what Andrew said about social media, everyone's so connected and it's so easy to spread information and educate yourself and others. I think that also really excites me, that everyone is becoming more aware.
Thank you, Anushka. And Natalie.
There's the thing that motivates me is that there's just so many people, especially youth, who truly want to make a difference. And I think when that mentality changes, when it stays, is when the change is able to happen. And with that, it is a little concerning that like burnout is an issue, because it's just so hard to face a problem and stay with that same frame of mind that you went into it with. But I think that like because so many people are passionate, that it won't happen. The issue that I'm like most passionate about is actually the foster care system, and just like many other things, it really needs improvement, which actually motivates me more because I know that I could be a part of that work.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you all so much for your in-depth, your thoughtfulness, and you are all truly inspirational. I was told that one of our participants, Abby, would like to share some thoughts on what she thought about the movie I Am Greta before we get to our other questions.
Hi, I'm Abby. So I won the free ticket, and I just love this because my freshman year of high school, we went to Spain and lived in Europe for a while. And so I thought that was great because, well, I learned so much about the way they handle things. It was much different than here in the US, about just like how they handle basic things, and they're much more environmentally like conscious. And so then when we came back, it was like, well, there's so much just waste everywhere and so many things that should be done and ways they handle things. Like, I remember going out every weekend and they would just have protests on things that people thought were important, and they would block the streets and we'd hear horns and we'd just know it was another protest. And so people there like really thought about it and fought for what they believed in. And so when I came back, I decided to get more involved in my community. And I was talking to Colorado representatives for school projects, and I was campaigning for them, and I just decided to get more involved. And so to see someone like Greta make such a big impact, it really puts hope into the youth, I think.
Thank you so much for sharing, Abby. It was great to hear from you. Alrighty, my colleagues that are helping me out, do we have some questions from the audience? And for these questions, any of our panelists are welcome to answer as you see fit.
Yeah, so we've had a couple questions come in. The first one was, what do you think works best to recruit your peers to join you in this work? And maybe just an open question to anyone that wants to jump in and answer that's on the panel.
Okay, I can speak to this. I would say one of the biggest things for me to get people to join into what I'm doing is just to lead by example. Because I found that more often than not, when you're doing activist work, you're probably gonna be the only person that is really passionate about it. Because I think sometimes people are really interested in solving problems, but they just aren't empowered to start taking action. So finding that empowerment within yourself or from adults in your life, and then just leading by example, other students will see that and they'll definitely just hop on board with you. Because I know that our generation cares about a lot of different issues, and it's really just getting them to see that you can do something about it and get them to join you.
Thank you, Indigo.
I could speak to that too. I'd say just really starting a dialogue, sharing your story, your experiences, why you're involved, really getting to the heart of that. Because if people know why you're concerned, why you see this as an issue, and why you want to make change, they'll want to join too, I feel like, most of the time.
Yeah, just to add off of what Andrew said, I feel like having conversations with peers is really important. Most kids our age are really busy, with school and extracurriculars and just their lives. So they might not think about all this activism work that could be done, or they just don't know where to start. So I feel like having those conversations with other people and giving them places where they can start using their voice, that's really important.
Thank you all for sharing.
We do have one more question that came in through the chat. Why do you think Greta was successful in spreading her message? Is there a specific element that you think made her successful?
I can speak to this. I think the most successful element just in the movement was the sense of community that was created. Because when Greta was, just starting, it was just a matter of like, we are in this together. This is for our best interests. Just definitely that sense of community, like we are the youth of this world and we need to make a change as a whole and as a community together. And like we were talking about before, that's what inspires people, is knowing that you are in it together and that you have a community that supports you and is fighting for the same thing. So I think that was one of the reasons why it was so powerful.
Thank you.
I also think Greta was very successful because she was just relentless in her journey. She sailed halfway across the world instead of taking a plane. She refused to go to school. She just took every single step and just tackled it head on. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and people were drawn to that.
Yeah, I'd also have to say, she didn't let the hate get to her. These officials across the world, people with serious power, were trying to tear her down, but she didn't let that get to her, and she just kept her focus on her goal, which I thought was really amazing.
I think she went into the issue with the mentality that there was going to be a change. And that is like so essential for youth to make a difference and just people in general. And then also, she was super informed about the issue and she was willing to inform others around her. And because she had like such a vast knowledge about what was happening, she was really able to like speak up for it.
I also think that like losing herself in the work really helped, but when she does that, she's able to really put all of the attention on the problem, and she's also able to empower other people as well, that are wanting to work on the problem. Like when she's talking to all those students and they're like, oh, like, you're so amazing, we love you. And she's like, hey, like, this isn't about me, this is about climate change, and you guys are here to help me make the change.
Thank you all. Those were some great input. I encourage all of you to hop into the chat because we've had some really great comments praising you all and just general comments. There weren't any other questions, were there?
No, there were no, sorry, there was a new chat that just came in, so I wanted to make sure I was telling you the truth. Yeah, there's a lot of encouraging messages there, so I would encourage the panelists to definitely check it out. And then some resources for some follow-up afterward if you're interested as well. But yeah, that's the last question from the chat.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Thank you so much to our panelists for speaking on these issues. It was really inspiring and wonderful to hear from all of you. Thank you to my Rise Above team for putting this on and supporting me in moderating. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to all of you who have joined us tonight. Thank you for your kind words and for listening to these amazing young people. And I hope you all stay safe, warm, and healthy.